Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and today we are going to have a look at the brand new Bonanza Professional by Black Square, about to release via Just Flight for a price of about 36 euros, with a combi package available together with the Baron Professional for 56 euros. So if you're interested in both, then do check out the bundle. But if you want to see what the Bonanza looks like in first place, then you're exactly right over here. So let's get right into this. We are loading her up on the ramp at Dienstlaken here, Echo Delta Lima Delta, runway 26 in use. We can already see that up here. Now, we are going to do a little local flight here, doing the standard stuff that we need to do to familiarize ourselves with the aircraft. So that is, of course, going through the normal procedures. We're going to do a takeoff and 3 landings so that we have our right to transport passengers, and we're also going to do a little stall and some steep turns, the usual stuff that you do to acquaint yourself with an aircraft. But let's go ahead and start with a couple of the basics, because there are 3 different Bonanzas available in this package, and the first one is the standard normally aspirated Bonanza as it was originally built by Beechcraft. Now, that's the one that we are going to fly today. There is also a turbocharged version available, and there is one with a turboprop available in the very same package. So some pretty exciting stuff. We are going to fly them all on this channel, but we're going to start with the standard normally aspirated because that's what most of you will be familiar with, so that you can get yourself a good overview of the airplane. The Bonanza Professional add-on sees a complete rebuild of the external model, adding a lot of nice stuff as well. For example, look at the leading edges over here. Lots of flies and dirt like you wouldn't normally see it on an aircraft like this. Also a nice level of modeling that went down here into the landing gear assembly or into the nose wheel assembly. Generally very well done model. Now let's go ahead and remove the outside elements here. No, I'm not talking about the prop, I'm talking about you back there. Then we can also grab the chocks, the covers, and that should also have removed the static port covers, and indeed it did. Now, if you want your passengers to board, then let's go ahead and do that through the aft entry door, which you can open using the click spot over here. And the same goes for the main door that we can open using the door handle over here. So pretty nice stuff that you can do with the modeling in the Bonnie. Now let's go ahead and close that one up again, because obviously we are not allowed to transport passengers just yet. To do that, we need our 3 takeoffs and landings and a quick instructional flight, which we are going to do today. And here we are in the flight deck of our November 6 Tango Quebec. Now, we do have a tablet down here, which we can use to customize a lot of the interior from the airplane. For example, you can see right now I've chosen the KX-155B as my primary comm unit and the GNS-430 as my backup, since we are somewhat flying the old 1970s style Bonanza in today's video. Now, rest assured, when we fly the turbocharged and the turboprop version, we are going to use some more modern avionics to show you the entire package. But let's go ahead and start with this configuration over here. Now, a couple of options that we've got available down here. For example, you can hide the weather radar pod on the right hand wing there, should you not be a fan of that, and all that nice kind of stuff. Also, we can straight away load the aircraft over here. You can see we currently have ourselves and our instructor in the flight deck. You can see I've already done a little test flight here, burning some 4 gallons from the left tank, so we will be using the right hand tank for this departure. Little center of gravity sheet down here as well that tells us if we are within the allowed weight limit, and if you're too lazy to do walk around, you can remove the exterior elements down here as well and control the doors and refill the oxygen. Apart from that, they've also added the overview over our engine. You get to see your engine condition. You can repair it if needed, but honestly I like to let this wear down a little bit. Then you also have the electrical system, the cabin environmental controls, and you can control failures from right here as well. So I'm going to turn on the mean time between failure mode so that we've got realistic chance for failures to occur. Now, by default, those are set, you know, a little bit nicer, so can also leave that off, then it's just going to give you realistic failures down here, as we've got the real-time failure rate turned on at the top. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and stow the tablet. You can either find the checklist for the aircraft down here in the FS 2024 EFB, or you can have a look at the product manual, which I can really recommend. They've got very extensive checklists in there, just like you would find in the real aircraft, plus a lot of the nice stuff that you would find in a real plane, like performance charts, your speeds, and so on. So some pretty cool stuff available down there. Now let's go ahead and start with the before starting engine checklist. And this is not going to be a tutorial, this is going to be a review of the airplane. So if I'm not explaining everything in detail, then I want to demonstrate you the add-on. I don't want to teach you the add-on in this particular video. A dedicated tutorial may come. Alright, so let's get started with the before starting engine checklist. The pre-flight inspection is complete, control locks are stowed, the seats and seatbelts secured, cabin doors are latched on both sides. Then the park and brake down here is set. Emergency gear handle is stowed. That one's nicely hidden. That is actually a little bit difficult to see. So if you're ever unsure where to find something, you can just go down here. And now we're looking for the emergency gear handle. You can go down here. You can see it's stowed. So that's a nice little feature of Flight Simulator. Okay, then let's remove that again and continue. Okay, so the emergency gear handle is stowed. The avionic breakers down here are all in. Then the flaps are up. The oxygen pressure is above 1550. That's good. So avionics down here are off. Then throttle is closed, mixture full, props high RPM and mixture full rich. So the cowl flaps down here are open. Aileron trim is centered, alternate air is off, firewall valve is open. Okay, landing gear is down, all sub-panel switches are off down here. Okay, the load meter is set up to primary. Then, main breakers are all in, alternate static air is normal, CO detector test down here is looking good. Okay, fuel selector onto the fullest tank, that's gonna be the right-hand tank for today's takeoff. Beacon light on, and that is nicely hidden down here. Okay, battery master on, voltage 23 minimum, we're at 25, that's perfect. Okay, annunciators, test and consider, test switches down here, and that's looking good. All are working, only the gyro warning stays illuminated, that's supposed to be the case. Alright, so primary alternator on, standby alternator on, fuel quantities are checked. Okay, auxiliary fuel pump on, we hear it operating, and off. Okay, so standby gyro pump, that's down here, on. You can see the instrument air is coming up, and the ADI is aligning. That is beautiful. Okay, so standby gyro pump annunciator is illuminated, the instrument air is in the green, and then we can turn it back off again. And that's the before engine start checklist complete. So our engine is cold, the airplane's been standing for a little while, let's do the engine start cold checklist. That's mixture full rich, throttle high RPM, props high RPM, throttle open now, auxiliary fuel pump high for 2 to 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. And off again, and then throttle open half an inch like that, and then starter engage. So the prop area is clear, let's go. And here we go. So RPMs up to 1000 to 1200. Oil pressure is checked in the green. And that's the engine start checklist complete. After start checklist, so throttle done, oil pressure set, start annunciator extinguished, low volt annunciator extinguished, alternator load below 25 amps in 2 minutes. We got that. Bus voltage 28. Yeah, more or less got that. Engine instruments are checked, lights are set, weather radar is on off standby, then avionics on. Okay, cabin air and heat as designed, air conditioning as designed, mixture lean for taxi. I'm just going to pull it out a little bit. Alright, and then we are basically ready to go. So what we're going to do is initially take off here from Dienstlaken. Then we're going to find ourselves a little area where we've got some good weather so that we can do a bit of air work, and then we'll come back for our 3 touch and goes. Okay, so let's see, pattern altitude is 1200, then we can set our altimeter. We got a pretty low QNH today, which means we are going to get some pretty good performance results. Field elevation is about 217, like that. So GPS is coming alive, then we can turn the weather radar on. Transponder standby please. So frequency 122.705, and you can see by default this is in 25 kilohertz. If you pull this you get 8.33. So you can set your frequencies. Also we want to select COM1 and monitor both. So we got 122.705, which is the field frequency, 1 to 1.5 down here for the emergency frequency. We don't need any of the rest. Transponder is on standby. That's all looking fantastic. Alright, let's use the ADF for the elapsed timer. Runway heading 260 is basically set, and that's all we need. Alright, wonderful. So with that we're ready to go. Then let's release the park and brake, test the brakes, and then we can taxi out to runway 26. The wind suck's pretty clear, gonna be a nice little crosswind. We'll ignore that thing over here. So right hand turn, checking the instruments, turn coordinator, ball and HSI. Then a little left hand turn and they're responding, looks good. Alright, perfect. Let's taxi out from a 26. Taxi in the Bonanza, so easy. With 1000 RPMs, it gives you a nice little speed. It can go quite fast, so let it accelerate, then break it back down to a slow speed, let it accelerate again. Kind of the way that you would also taxi an airliner with carbon brakes. Think Airbus. Or 737 MAX for that matter. Pretty easy to maintain the center line, as you can see. I do need a little bit of left input here because of the wind. Alright, now we can start slowing it again. Very easy to steer, lovely nose wheel steering on this plane. Really, really enjoyable ground steering model. Alright, so let's stop it here in the turn. Then we can set that park and brake, and well, then I suppose let's go for the run-up checklist. Very quick look at the engine instruments here. AGT is going to come up, cylinder temperature is slowly increasing, oil temperature is there already. Yeah, let's go ahead and start the run-up. So, the park and brake is set. Annunciators, test and consider. The reason we test this all the time is because we want to make sure that none of the lamps break. Because otherwise we don't have master caution system or anything the likes on this airplane. So there is no way to see that something's broken unless you actually feel the failure. Alright then, remote compass is left and aligned. Then let's see, that's 335, and ooh, that's not really matching here. So that is slave though. And actually, you tell you what, that's not 335, that's 035. And now it absolutely makes sense. Small difference is acceptable. Alright, so mixture, full rich, throttle for 1700 RPMs. I kind of like how the manifold pressure reacts very quickly, but the RPMs take a while to react there. You can see that here. Here we go, 1700 RPM, so throttle exercise, propeller exercise to 300 RPM drop. So let's pull that off, and here we go. Let's do that 2 more times to make sure that the oil is distributed properly in the prop. Alright, that's looking good. Next up, we're going to check the magnetos, 1500 RPM drop maximum. let's wait until this is at 17 again, which it is now. So, left magneto. Yeah, that's 175. Both. Right magneto. That's looking a bit better here. Say 150. 50 RPMs difference are allowed, so that's not a problem. Instrument air is checked. Primary alternator comes off. Now the alternator load goes to 0. Load meter to secondary, and we can see the secondary is working down there. Then, standby alternator annunciator is illuminated. Okay, standby alternator off, primary alternator on, back to primary on the gauge, and here's our load, that's looking good, and then standby is also coming back on, that's looking good. Alright, next up is going to be the propeller heat, down here, turning it on, prop amps are there, and the alternator load rises, and then we can turn that back off again. Okay, then throttle back to 1000 RPMs. Here we go, looking excellent. So, electric trim test, let's see that up here, and that moves our trim indeed, looking good in both directions. So, autopilot test, let's turn it on in heading mode, and no, that's the wrong gauge. That's the one we need to turn. Alright, responds to a left turn, now it also responds to a right hand turn, the yoke follows, and we can disengage it, and a second press removes the flight director. Perfect, that's our autopilot test complete. Buck is set for runway heading. That is looking good. Okay, then we can test the flaps. I do like to monitor them while they're moving. And that's looking fantastic. Then let's bring them back up. Enchanted light works. Passing the approach position. And retract it, and I am going to extend them into the approach position like that. Alright, good. So, flight controls. Are looking fantastic. Altimeter is set, departure altitude set, takeoff heading is set, panel lights, we don't need them today, and park and brake release in a moment. So that's looking good. Then before takeoff checklist. Mixture is set for maximum power, oil temperature is 24 degrees minimum, and it is far above that, that's looking good. Okay, auxiliary fuel pump is off, transponder on alt, weather radar on, and that's the before takeoff checklist complete. I'll also turn the landing light and the pitot heat on down there, and that's it. Alright, quick takeoff briefing, we rotate at 72, the initial departure straight out with a right-hand turn because the weather seems to be the best in the north, so we can do our air work over there, then come back for the approaches. Engine failure after takeoff, we're familiar with that after the live stream with the Aerostar. There's a field both on the left and on the right-hand side depending on where it happened. No turns, no immediate turns back below 1,200 feet on the altimeter, otherwise we land straight ahead into the fields. Best glide at this airplane is 100 and something as far as I remember. Let me actually quickly look that up. So let's see, best glide is 110, yeah. Alright, and that's it. Any questions? No? Lovely, then the approach area is clear, the park and brake is released, let's go. You've just gotta love this. So, left hand side is clear. Let's line up, stop it here, like that. Elapsed timer 1 and elapsed timer 2, and then all the instruments are looking good, take off. As we're flying the normally aspirated Bonanza today, it's easy, it's just full power. If we were flying the turbocharged or the turboprop, that'd be a different story. So, 72 knots and rotate. Positive climb. tap the brakes, and gear up. So, centering the controls here, a little bit of crosswind, as you could definitely feel. I do need a little bit of right aileron here to keep her wings level. That's completely okay, and we're going through 400 AGL, we're above 80 knots, flaps up. Alright then, let's limit our rate of climb to 1000 feet a minute, since we are not pressurized, at least not in this version of the aircraft. That just makes it better for our ears, and then we are leaving the traffic pattern to the northwest. If you're wondering, no, I'm not really using my GPS today. I'm so familiar with the area that we're flying in because I actually did my PPL over here that I am, well, kind of happy just to do everything like this. Okay, so let's climb to some 3000 feet over here, and while we're climbing we can already do a couple of checklists here. So climb power should be full throttle, 2500 RPMs, like that. Max continuous, however, is 2700 RPM, so you can't just leave it at full forward, but we don't want to burn all that much fuel, do we? Okay, so that's looking pretty good so far. Then let's do the en route climb checklist. Mixture for maximum power, props 2500, throttle full open, cowl flaps as desired. And what do we have here? Well, engine isn't that hot. Let's actually go ahead and close them. It's rather cold outside. So the cowl flaps closed. Air conditioning is, well, 13 degrees in here. Let's actually pull a little bit. So down here is our cabin heat. Let's just put that somewhere in the middle position because it is really effective. You'll see it respond here pretty quickly. Okay, then oxygen is not required for the moment, otherwise you could turn it on down here. And the way the oxygen system works is literally that you just have an oxygen bottle in the airplane, and then you've got the outlets located somewhere over here, and then you just basically stick yourself a little mask in there, and that way you can get some oxygen. Alright, and engine performance monitor, that's the en route climb checklist complete. Now we're reaching 3,500 feet. Let's go ahead and maintain those. Well, let's quickly turn on our autopilot. So we'll take alt hold, heading hold, autopilot engage. Let's go ahead and set some nice power for our cruise, and we do have the tables for that in the product manual. Since we are just doing a training flight today, I want to save some fuel, so we're going to go for 55% power, and that should give us about 120 to 130 knots. So that's going to be 21 inches and 2100 RPMs. So let's reduce manifold pressure here, like that, and then we can also go down with the RPMs to 2100 as well. That slightly increases manifold pressure, so let's make sure that we readjust that. Here we go, 21. That's fantastic. And the fuel flow should be about 52 pounds per engine per hour. Now, our gauge is of course in gallons, so that'd be nice if they could change that in the tables, but it is what it is. And in any case, we got our EDM 800 down here, so let's do a lean find. Now we are going to lean until we find the first peak here. You can nicely see the horsepower is measured up there from the engine, so just look at how much of a difference this makes. On the bottom right you see our fuel flow and how that's going down, so you can see that you can really save something here. Alright, there's our leanest mixture. Let's increase it slightly above that. And here we go, best possible temperature. A bit more, we're looking for about minus 50-ish. Something like that, should be good. Alright, cool. So, that's everything we needed down here. Then let's go ahead. With that, we've got a leaned airplane. We're nicely in cruise, we're doing a good speed. Temperature is good as well now at 21 degrees. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of air work. So we could start with some standard turns left and right, but you guys know how to fly those, so I'm not too worried there. Initiate with the aileron, add a bit of rudder to keep the ball centered. And as you can see, very, very easy to execute. Now let's make things a little bit more interesting. Let's turn that into a steep turn. Let's make that 60 degrees left. Maintain the altitude. Maintain everything in coordinated flight. We're going to lose a little bit of speed here, but that shouldn't be anything dramatic. Alright, and when we're reaching turn completion, we're going to do the same thing into the other end side. The reason we do this exercise is because it gives us a better feeling for the airplane. Right, here we go. Gives us a better feeling for the airplane and how it handles, how it feels on the controls, especially when you're putting some load on it, because a maneuver like this is flown at almost 2 Gs. Now we're losing some altitude, shouldn't do that. You can see, it's been a little while since I've flown this airplane myself as well. I wanted to keep this a first impression, so I didn't do too much preparation here. But as you can see, nicely controllable. Looking very good. Let's roll out here and stay on that heading. Alright. Very nice. So that's the steep turns. Then let's go ahead and do some stalls. And as we're about to do those, let's already set course back towards our field. So for the stalls, I will increase the power a little bit. Give me 2500 RPMs. And I'm also going to take full mixture. Alright, then let's start pulling the power. We might get the gear warning here in a moment. Here it comes. That's fine. So, clean stalling speed, as you can see, about 68 knots. So let's see how the airplane is going to respond. I do recall the Bonanza should be rather violent, so I do expect it to start falling over onto one side, but let's see. Oh yeah, definitely does. But easy to recover. Here we go. That was easy going. Right, let's do the same thing here with power on. I'm going to add some power, 25. Like that. Now we do the same thing. Has a tendency to turn to the left. I'm using right rudder to counter that, as you can see on the needle and bolt. And here we go. Now I'm losing it. Alright. So that was pretty good. Let's do the same thing one more time. And this time we are going to do it in landing configuration. So power off, speed is below the limits. So gear down, flaps down. You do get a gear warning here because we selected flaps full before the gear was down. Here we go. Idle power. And you can see the warning comes a little bit later. And now look at that. With full aft aileron, it simply pitches down. That's looking good. Alright, recover. Well, let's do the same thing one more time. This time with power on. I do believe we need about 21 inches here for approach. So this is approach power. Let's do that one more time with approach power to see how the airplane is going to react in a worst case scenario. Again, using some right rudder to keep her wings level. And here she goes. Recover. Alright, so as you can see, she has a tendency to lose lift on one wing first, but overall she's pretty nice to control. Very easy handling. I do like that. You just gotta be a little bit careful there. So, flaps up, gear up. Let's return her to a maximum power cruise. After all, the Bonanza was, or is, known for its speed. And for this, we'll just take her wings level here. Let's keep the course, let's keep the altitude, and let's go for a 75% power cruise here. So that's 25 inches. Quite a bit of power now, and 2500 RPMs. Which is set like this. And that should give us a true airspeed of about 165. And let's go back down to 2000 as well. Speed should stabilize at about 165. Down here, true airspeed is almost equal to the indicated airspeed, so I'm not really afraid of any differences there. Right. And let's just turn on the autopilot for a second. So, heading Alt engage, and heading back can be centered where it is, like that. Alright, so very quick lean find. Let's go out of it and back into it. Let's start leaning. Alright, here's the leaners. Let's add a little bit. I'm just doing it grossly here. You can see how much power it actually gained by leaning her. Alright, now let's see. Speed is about 165 and stable over there. I like it. Let's see, outside temperature is 11 degrees in 2000 feet, so that's about here, roughly 170 versus 165 from the manual. Perfect. Okay, I like it. She does fly pretty well. Now, let's see about the takeoffs and landings, because that is the, let's say, real fun stuff. So down there is our field. We are going to do a long final over here. I don't want to fly to the south into the pattern and then back, no. Let's just do a long final. 1200 feet will be pattern altitude. We'll already put that in for after the touch and go. So then, mixed to ridge, cowl flaps open. Let's start pulling some power. Like that. Awesome. Okay, so descent checklist. Cowl flaps are, well, already open again. Throttle reduced, mixture enrichen, and cylinder temperature 116 degrees minimum. We got that, no problem. Right, approach checklist. Seat and seatbelt secure, fuel selector full as tank, and they're both pretty much equal, so we'll just keep it on the right hand side. Fuel imbalance 15 maximum, tip tank transfer. Well, we don't have tip tanks installed on this particular airplane. So, landing light is on, pitot heat on, prop heat off, air conditioning off. Right, cowl flaps open, mixture for max power and flaps as needed. Perfect, so let's already turn towards the final here and give me approach flaps. There's our runway down there, so we're like on a very extended right hand base. Okay, gear down. You really feel how you need to add some elevator trim there. I like that. Just makes her feel good. But you can also see how much power we need when we are in level flight to maintain 100 knots. Right, now let's give a landing flaps. And very nicely established on the final. You can see we got a very nice crab angle here, so that'll be the challenge. Decrabbing the airplane before touchdown. So, Dienstlaken does have the display threshold for aircraft under 2,000 kilos, that's us. So we got to touch down somewhere over here, just shy of the first taxiway. Okay, so lights are on and flaps down, mixture is full forward, and while I'm looking down I'm losing the center line. Lovely. Happens. Approach speed around about 80 knots, so let's bring her down to that, make sure she's all stabilized. And this is looking good. A little bit of left crosswind, should be easy. Don't worry if we're deviating from the puppy, that is intentional because of the displaced threshold. A little turbulent here, you can kind of see my yoke move down there a bit. Alright. So, power off, prop full forward, decrab. And that's number 1. So, flaps back onto the approach position. Let's add the power again. So, prop full forward, bit of aileron to keep wings level, and 70 knots, rotate. And immediately feel how she turns into the wind. So, tap the brakes, gear up. Slowly neutralize the controls, let her turn into that wind. Nice. AGL, flaps up. Let's set 2500 RPMs, even though that's just for the en route climb, so we could leave her on full for the traffic pattern, but we do want to be careful, do we? Let's keep the speed at or below 120. 1200 feet, perfect. I totally love the view out of the window from the Bonanza. You just got such an awesome view. Huge windows. Alright. I do think we kinda need the crab angle. Let's keep her like that. Okay, so flaps approach. And gear down. So here's the marker for our base turn. There's the field. We will have tailwind on the base, so it's gonna go quickly. That's why I'm already descending a little bit. So then let's start the turn. Let's keep 90 knots for now. We'll slow down in a few moments. Should stay inside the road over here, which we do now. Good. Alright. Flaps full. Now, with the tailwind, that's going to be an interesting final turn, but let's make sure we get that right. Remember, touchdown is over there, so it might look high, but it isn't. Alright, and final turn. So nice that you can actually see the runway properly here. That's so difficult on so many aircraft. But as you can see, it enables a very nice final turn. Well, it would be even nicer if we wouldn't have that lag right now. Go outside for a moment, usually that helps. And look at that. That seems to look fairly nice. So the gear is down, the flaps are down, perfect. And decrab. Hold her, hold her, hold her. Beautiful. Look, flaps back onto approach. Let's do one more. So power set, passing 70, rotate. Very, very nice flight model. Responds very nicely to the crosswind as well. Positive climb, gear up. Then let's slowly release the rudder. And here we go. That's good. So this time we're going to do the spot landing, which means basically flying up to 2,000 feet above the field elevation, over the threshold, then we cut the power, and we are going to glide her down, which is like the ultimate exercise there in order to qualify us onto the airplane. Going through 600 AGL, flaps up. Fuel distribution still rather even, we are using the right-hand tank for the entire flight now. So, RPM's 2500, that's already looking good. Alright, very easy going. I like that, the flight dynamics are really nice to get used to. It's an enjoyable airplane to fly, very enjoyable airplane to fly indeed. So we climbed to 2,200. That means we got like 400 to go now. Then nicely position us for the spot landing. With that crosswind, it's gonna get interesting. Slowly level off. Awesome. Okay, so we're just gonna use a typical cruise power setting here, 25, 25. Like that. So let's start turning. If you do want to cheat a little bit on that spot landing, this turn right now will give you a very good idea of how strong the wind is going to be. But do note that we have a retractable gear, so extending that is really going to increase our drag. Man, look at how tight I have to take the turn now. 45 degrees of bank just to end up on the center line. It is a very strong wind indeed. Of course we have accelerated as well, so that plays into the equation, but you get the idea. Alright, so we're nicely above the runway right now. Let's make sure we're in 2000 AGL so that we meet the criteria for the exercise, and then we'll just fly ourselves exactly over the airport. You kind of got to guesstimate where the airport is. Gotta give you that. Alright, and then start the exercise. So, car idle. So, pull up the speed. We know that 110 is going to be our best glide speed. So let's maintain 110. Here we go. Now I would love to pull the circuit breaker off that gear warning, but that's exactly how back in the days when I've been in flight school they did a landing gear up landing after an exercise like this, so ain't gonna do that. Okay, so maintaining 110, let's trim her for that. And now the challenge is, how far do I need to fly upwind? Right, I think this is looking rather good. So let's not make this too far, because we still gotta add some drag by extending the gear and the flaps. Speed 110 is good. Now the wind is really helping us, getting her closer to the runway. Just gotta time the altitude right. Okay, gear down. That's definitely going to add some drag. So make sure to maintain that speed, 110. Okay, we are coming in a little bit low here. Why is it lagging? Don't lag. This is annoying. Don't lag, please. Okay, now we need a bit of power. Those lags just... I'll blame it on the lags. No, honestly. With the flaps, we would probably have been able to reach the runway just about. So... Alright. Gotta admit, the spot landing could have been a little bit better. No doubts about that. But, you know, I can assure you this is so much easier in the real world when you got like an actual feeling of motion. Why are you lagging, simulator? There's no reason to lag. We've been here at this airport a dozen times. Alright, so runway is vacated. By the way, the lags are not associated with the aircraft here. I don't know why, but this happens in all kinds of aircraft, so probably a sim update 4 beta thing, not 100% sure about that. Right, after landing checklist, cowl flaps, open, flaps. Up, lights, set, pitot heat, off, air conditioning as desired, cabin air and heat as desired, after landing checklist complete. Well then, that was our 26 minutes of flying the Baron. Bonanza. Baron is going to be next. So let's bring her right back to the apron, and then let's go ahead and park her and make a little conclusion. Interesting, by the way, that the checklist doesn't tell us to turn the weather radar off, but we'll leave it at that. You should really not be standing there. That's dangerous. Park and brake set. Okay, shutdown checklist. So, park and brake set, avionics, let's see. All off. Okay, all sub-panel switches are off. I'll leave the beacon on intentionally over here. Alright then, throttle, close, prop, high RPM, mixture, cutoff, magnetos, off. Alright, alternators, off, battery, off, park and brake can be released, control locks in position, and that's the shutdown and securing checklist complete. I love the sound of how the gyros are turning down here. Alright, excellent. So, we'll put the chocks in a position over here, and that's the Bonanza. So guys, I do hope this gave you a nice little first idea of how the Black Square Bonanza flies in Flight Simulator 2024. I really like the Bonanza Professional. Nice flight model, nice handling, and lovely modeling. Also great choice of avionics, and overall it comes at a fairly decent price for an aircraft of this complexity, because this is absolutely a study level add-on. Now, for those of you who own the previous analog Bonanza packages from Black Square for Flight Simulator 2020, you are entitled a discount on the new one, so go ahead and check out Just Flight's website to see how much you can get there. Apart from that, thank you very much to Just Flight for providing a review copy of the aircraft. I do hope that you guys have enjoyed the small review. Leave your feedback in the comments underneath the video. My full recommendation here, as with all of the Black Square aircraft, 2 more aircraft, by the way, included in that package, with the turbocharged and the turboprop version of the Bonnie. So thank you very much for watching. As always, like, comment and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.